Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Monday, September 13th, 2021. And our top story today, hanging it up to help business owners protect their downside risk. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Mike O'Connor, Vice President from Assured Partners. Mike, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, and we'll get to Assured Partners and the property and casualty marketplace in the second segment. But I think what's really going to be interesting for the audience to hear is you were a Major League Baseball player, a pitcher, for many years in the major leagues. And I want to get your thoughts about transitioning from pitching in front of 47, 48, 50,000 people every night, almost every night because you're a pitcher. You probably don't pitch every night. But transitioning from that into, I guess, more civilian life. What was that like?
Definitely was a process. I mean, when I was, wrapping up my playing career, I'd say the toughest part was kind of deciding when I was going to be done. In 2013, I finished the year in independent ball. Went to Puerto Rico. Tried to get myself back on track, and nobody wanted to bring me to spring training, and my first child had just been born, and the options to continue to play were not great, and kind of decided with my family that was time that I was going to try to move on to something else. Had all of a sudden had all these different options on my plate. As a baseball player, that's something I grew up wanting to do since I was very young, and then all of a sudden, you have a million different things to choose from, and you kind of have to figure out, what lane you want to go into, have some focus. I had my degree in finance from the George Washington University, so started kind of looking into the financial services space. Honestly, for like a 2-year period, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, if I wanted to stay in baseball. I knew that, that would always be my passion, but did I want to be away from home that much and make that sacrifice as a coach or as a scout, and decided that I wanted to try something outside of baseball. Got into sales, was doing a lot of baseball lessons while I figured that out, and then ended up taking a job with Guggenheim Investments where I was, sitting in a cube and, doing, learning the financial services world. And that was definitely a huge adjustment. I think the toughest thing, for me was to kind of just be committed to kind of starting at the bottom again. As somebody had been successful at one thing, when I first started trying to figure out what I was going to do. Yeah. I think the struggle was, being willing to start from the beginning again.
Yeah, so, I agree with you. It's hard to check the ego at the door. We all have one, and if you're really good at something and then have to start again, how helpful was, I presume you had an agent who helped you with your contracts, you had family, friends. How did they help guide you? Because, I think a lot of people out there have second careers or third careers. Maybe they're not professional baseball players, but you sought out the wisdom of others to really get your feet wet. How did you do that? What was some of the thoughts you had there?
Yeah, it was definitely a tough process. My agent at the time, and I didn't agree with him with what he was telling me. He was telling me, I think it's time for you to probably start doing something else and get started with your second career instead of trying to hang on, which was tough to hear. But honestly, like looking back, that was the right advice, I think. So it was, difficult to hear from him, but he was just somebody that was honest with me and kind of had seen other people, and he felt, is somebody, that could do other things that, I'd be better off if I just started down that path and started building my resume in the business world sooner than later. My family, my wife, my parents, my brother, were the people that kind of helped me through this. It was definitely, a tough period for me looking back, and it definitely took a lot of people support to help me get me on the right path.
Yeah, and let's talk about the transition into financial services. You mentioned working at Guggenheim, kind of learning the field from the ground up. The insurance industry, you have to be licensed, and I'm sure you had to crack the books and I don't know if it's a 6 or 63 or all the above. There's or Series 7, whatever you had to go through that process. I mean, that's got to be very different from riding the bench or pitching in the bullpen or whatever the right analogy is to now. And I'm sure you had to do it. Look, baseball is an analysis business too. I mean, you have hitters, opposing hitters. I'm sure you were doing that. But what's that like to go from that sport to now having to study for these exams and get licensed?
Yeah, I never had to do the Series 7 or any of those. I have my property and casualty and life and health license. But yeah, going back to study, it's like relearning how to study for an exam. It had been, at that point, it had been, 14 years or so since I was in college and had done that. So yeah, that was a process to kind of figure out what I needed to do to study for an exam because it had been so long. So yeah, that was definitely a piece of it. But yeah, no, I think that stuff, kind of gets you back in the right mindset of what you need to be doing to understand the business as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I was going to ask you, we don't have to go into specifics here, but contracts for Major League Baseball players are probably a little bit more lucrative, regardless of whether you're the superstar athlete. You have to get, I would imagine, get yourself situated to understand, okay, you're going to be paid on a biweekly basis. It's going to be X. You've got to contribute to your 401k. You've got to get health care. Some of those benefits you most likely had through Major League Baseball. But would you mind just, to the extent you can, kind of share that mindset of changing how you were paid and the process there?
Yeah, I mean, as a baseball player, you can do pretty well. I mean, when I reached as a minor league player, my first few years, you don't make a whole lot. And then, I had kind of an up and down career. I spent, 5 seasons on the 40-man roster and parts of 4 years in the big leagues, and got close to where things were looking like I could have done pretty well. Some injuries definitely changed that, and I mean, it's just a really competitive business. I think for me, moving into the business world, it was just kind of figuring out where I wanted to be and long term what that looked like. I was fortunate to be in a position where I could think more long term and not have to find the job that would pay me the most right away, and something that I saw was a long term career.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever think about relocation? I know you live in the Maryland, closer to the DC area, but did you think about living in different parts of the country? What kind of went through your mindset in terms of that?
We're pretty situated here. When I finished playing, my wife was pretty stable in her career in the hospitality industry. So we're pretty committed to being in the DC area, and that was where we wanted to be. So I'm always open to things and my wife is as well, but I think we like this area. We both went to GW in DC and like being around the city, but out in the suburbs a little bit away from all the craziness downtown. Yeah,
literally. Well, Mike, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the insurance business and specifically property and casualty. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Mike O'Connor, Vice President of Assured Partners. Mike, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Jeff.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate you sharing some of your story and history. Let's shift gears to today, and let's talk about the insurance business, specifically property and casualty. What's the impact? I think we know the health impact, we know some of the financial impact, but what's been the impact overall of the pandemic, the last 18 or so months, to what you do, which is property and casualty and insurance?
Yeah, the insurance market has definitely become more challenging than when I first got into this business back in 2016. There's been a lot of issues between the storms, the fires, and things like that going across the country. All the business interruption issues with COVID, with businesses shutting down, and then most recently the things that you see in the news is the cyber attack. So all those things have impacted the insurance marketplace, where it's definitely impacted rates and things like that, as there's been more lawsuits and claims and things filed. So it's definitely become a tougher market for businesses, individuals, to place coverage.
Yeah, I would think you could tell me when you're looking for insurance, do you have to show, for example, revenue streams that you have as a business to get certain levels of coverage? And I would think that if you had to take a step back, because if you're a small business owner, for example, and you had to take a step back or close your doors because of COVID, you might not have that revenue stream, or might not be able to have proof. How has that really impacted writing of new business?
I think we've dealt with some businesses recently that kind of shut down during COVID, more in the hospitality space. It definitely causes. I think the insurance marketplace understands that with certain types of businesses. Usually if you have a lapse in coverage, that's kind of a red flag. But with this last 18 months, I think some of that's out the window, and they are a little more understanding, because that's something that has impacted so many businesses across the country.
Yeah. Are you seeing more businesses write, of all sizes, write cyber, or I guess, are you writing more cyber insurance? And what do those premia look like? I have to think, I can just, you know them more than I do. T-Mobile, Wawa. I mean, the list just goes on, and unfortunately, we're all going to be victim in some way, shape, or form of the hack. What has the cyber market looked like?
Yeah, several years ago, it was very affordable to get cyber coverage for businesses as a newer product. They're trying to get more people purchasing it now. I mean, I think most people look at it as a necessary policy that you need to buy. I mean, I'm not going to say everybody buys it, but the majority of clients are purchasing it, and those rates, it always will depend on if they've had claims. It just has gotten much tougher with underwriting in order the applications and all the questions that need to be answered. I mean, it used to be we needed, 4 or 5 questions. Now it's, 3 or 4 pages. And then, if there's anything on there they want more information, there's other applications. So it's just become more of a process. And I think it's something that, people are trying to figure out, but there's just been so many claims in that area recently. And insurance companies, end of the day, want to make sure that they are still profitable.
Makes sense. They're a for-profit business. Oftentimes they have shareholders. I certainly understand that. And look, the dynamics of the world change. And so you have to adapt to the new business environment. Mike, you mentioned, I think you mentioned some fires. Let's talk a little bit about hurricanes. And we saw what really interesting with this Hurricane Ida, I think her name is, or its name was, a lot of flooding. And we saw, for example, New Jersey, New York, the New England area, I guess, get something amazing that they had not experienced within 30 or 40 years. What's the impact to flood insurance and some of the other property insurances you need to like an environment? Because you would never expect an area like that to really be subject to flooding, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of changes in the weather. Flood insurance is another area that's going through a lot of changes. They are redoing a lot of the maps for flood insurance across the country. With everything going on, I mean, we always advise any of our business owners or personal clients to purchase flood insurance because that is excluded on a standard property policy. I mean, it would have certain limits, but you could purchase, excess flood. So that is something that, in this world we're living in now with the storms and, all these things going on, even if you're in an area that, traditionally didn't have flooding, it is something that, we are trying to have our clients consider always.
Yeah. And when you have a client, I would assume, and you tell me if I'm wrong, you give a deep dive. It's that holistic approach to use that overused buzzword where you're looking at a client, their current situation, and how they can better protect themselves and your family. Because if you're liable, if you have personal liability, then people have access to your assets, right? I mean, that's why people usually get business liability and P&C and other types of insurance products.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in this country, there's so many lawsuits and things. I mean, I think people, that have assets are always a target of lawsuits, and things, accidents and things always do happen. I think it's just, for us, it's just making our clients aware of what risks they have, how, where things could go wrong and how insurance can help protect them from that.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we're going to have to leave it there. I know we didn't do insurance enough justice, but we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon. And we look forward to chatting with you again.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, somebody you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.